There will always be noise. Noise in the world. Noise in the opinions of others. Noise in the fears that visit us in the middle of the night and whisper that we are not ready, not strong enough, not capable enough. Life does not wait for perfect conditions before it tests us. It arrives with unexpected storms, difficult conversations, disappointments, and moments that seem determined to shake our confidence. Yet the true measure of a person is not found in how loudly they speak when everything is going well. It is found in how steadily they stand when everything around them is moving. A calm mind is not something reserved for a fortunate few. It is not a gift given only to those who live easy lives. It is a skill. It is a choice. It is a quiet form of power that grows every time you refuse to let fear become your master. The world may try to convince you that strength looks like force, speed, and constant action. But some of the strongest people you will ever encounter are those who have learned how to remain centered when confusion surrounds them. Think about how much energy is lost when we allow every challenge to disturb our peace. One careless comment can ruin an entire day. One setback can make us question our worth. One unexpected problem can send our thoughts racing toward the worst possible outcome. Yet, the situation itself is often not what defeats us. It is the storm we create within ourselves. The mind can become either a shelter or a battlefield, depending on how we train it. Today, I want to share a truth that can transform the way you move through life. No matter what situation you face, you have the ability to cultivate calm within yourself. Not because life will become easier, but because you will become wiser in how you meet it. When you train your mind to remain calm, you begin to see clearly. You make better decisions. You protect your energy. You discover a strength that cannot be taken away by circumstances. And once you learn this, every challenge becomes not a reason to panic, but an opportunity to rise with greater clarity, dignity, and purpose. The world often teaches us to move quickly, to answer immediately, to react without hesitation, and to measure our worth by how much we can endure at once. In the middle of this rush, calmness can seem like a luxury rather than a necessity. Yet, inner stillness is one of the greatest strengths a person can possess. It is the quiet space within that remains untouched by the noise of circumstances. It is the ability to stand in the center of a storm without becoming the storm itself. When life becomes difficult, many people search for control in the external world. They try to manage every outcome, predict every challenge, and eliminate every uncertainty. But true peace is not found in controlling what happens around us. It is found in learning how to remain steady within ourselves, regardless of what happens. Inner stillness does not mean the absence of problems. It does not mean pretending that pain, disappointment, or fear do not exist. It means refusing to allow those experiences to take ownership of your mind. A calm person feels the same emotions that everyone else feels. They experience frustration, sadness, anxiety, and uncertainty. The difference is that they do not immediately surrender to those emotions. They create a small but powerful space between what happens and how they respond. In that space lives wisdom, patience, and clarity. Chaos has a way of demanding our attention. It pulls at us from every direction. A harsh word from someone we trust can disturb our thoughts for days. Unexpected setbacks can make us question our abilities. News, social pressures, and personal responsibilities can crowd the mind till it feels impossible to think clearly. In such moments, stillness becomes a refuge. It allows us to step back from the immediate intensity of a situation and see it from a broader perspective. What seemed overwhelming a moment ago often appears more manageable when viewed through a calm and centered mind. There is something remarkable about people who carry peace within them. They do not need to raise their voices to demonstrate strength. They do not panic when plans change. They understand that difficulties are a natural part of life, rather than a personal attack against them. Because of this understanding, they conserve their energy for what truly matters. Instead of fighting every challenge with resistance and fear, they meet life with presence and awareness. The practice of inner stillness begins with attention. It begins when we notice our thoughts instead of becoming trapped inside them. Every day, countless thoughts pass through the mind. Some inspire us, while others create worry and doubt. Not every thought deserves our belief. Not every fear deserves our obedience. The more we learn to observe our minds without immediately reacting, the more freedom we gain. We begin to recognize that we are not every emotion we feel, nor every thought we think. We are the awareness behind them, the steady presence capable of choosing where our focus will rest. When this understanding grows, calmness stops being something we search for and starts becoming something we carry with us wherever we go. The noise of the world may continue. Challenges may still arrive without warning. Uncertainty may remain a permanent companion on the journey of life. Yet beneath all of it, there exists a deeper place within us that cannot be shaken by every passing event, a place where wisdom speaks more softly than fear, where patience stands taller than panic, and where peace remains available even in the midst of confusion. One of the most important lessons a person can learn is the difference between reacting and responding. At first glance, they may appear to be the same thing. Both happen after an event, a challenge, or an interaction. Yet the distance between them can determine the quality of an entire life. A reaction is immediate, driven by emotion, impulse, and habit. A response is thoughtful, intentional, and guided by awareness. When the mind is untrained, it reacts automatically to whatever appears before it. When the mind is calm and disciplined, it chooses its response carefully. This simple shift holds tremendous power. Many of us spend years reacting without realizing it. Someone criticizes us, and we immediately become defensive. A plan falls apart, and we instantly assume the worst. An unexpected problem appears, and fear rushes in before reason has a chance to speak. These reactions often feel natural because they happen so quickly. The mind sees a threat, real or imagined, and moves into action. Yet what feels natural is not always what serves us best. A reaction may satisfy an emotion in the moment, but it often creates consequences that last much longer. Consider how many conflicts begin with a single reaction. One angry comment leads to another. One moment of frustration becomes a lasting argument. Words spoken without reflection can damage relationships that took years to build. The same pattern appears in many areas of life. Fear causes people to abandon opportunities before they begin. Impatience leads to poor decisions. Anxiety creates stories about the future that may never come true. In each case, the reaction becomes more powerful than the reality itself. Responding requires something different. It requires the willingness to pause, even if only for a few seconds. That pause may seem insignificant, but it creates space for wisdom to enter. Instead of being controlled by the first emotion that appears, we gain the opportunity to examine it. We can ask ourselves whether our feelings are revealing truth or merely reflecting temporary discomfort. We can choose actions that align with our values rather than our impulses. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending they do not exist. Emotions carry important information. Anger can reveal a violated boundary. Fear can signal caution. Sadness can remind us of what matters deeply. The goal is not to eliminate these feelings, but to prevent them from becoming the sole decision makers in our lives. A calm mind listens to emotion without becoming its servant. Every difficult situation offers a choice. We can allow circumstances to dictate our behavior, or we can decide who we want to be within those circumstances. The person who responds rather than reacts understands that their character is more important than the event itself. They recognize that while they cannot always control what happens around them, they can influence what happens within them. Over time, this practice changes the way we experience life. Challenges no longer feel like emergencies demanding instant action. Criticism becomes information rather than a personal attack. Uncertainty becomes something to navigate rather than something to fear. The mind becomes less crowded by emotional turbulence and more guided by clarity. In that clarity, decisions become wiser, relationships become healthier, and resilience grows stronger, allowing us to face each moment with greater confidence, patience, and self-mastery than the impulses that once tried to control us. The quality of your life is shaped not only by the events that happen to you, but also by the thoughts you allow to live in your mind. Every day, thousands of thoughts pass through our awareness. Some encourage us, some challenge us, and others quietly drain our energy without us even noticing. Many people believe they are powerless against these thoughts, as if the mind is a machine that operates on its own. Yet, one of the greatest discoveries a person can make is that they are not merely observers of their thinking. They have the ability to guide it, question it, and ultimately reclaim control over it. An untrained mind often behaves like a restless traveler, wandering from one worry to another. It revisits old mistakes, replays painful memories, and imagines future disasters that have not happened. A single negative thought can quickly multiply into dozens more. Doubt creates fear. Fear creates hesitation. Hesitation creates regret. Before long, a person becomes trapped inside a cycle that feels impossible to escape. The situation outside may be manageable, but the story inside the mind transforms it into something much larger. This is why reclaiming control of your thoughts is so important. The goal is not to force yourself to think positively all the time. Life is too complex for that. Difficult emotions and challenging thoughts are part of the human experience. The real power comes from recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention or belief. Just because a thought appears does not mean it is true. Just because a fear enters your mind does not mean it predicts the future. Thoughts are often suggestions rather than facts. Many people spend years accepting every thought as reality. If the mind says, "I am not capable," they believe it. If the mind says, "Something will go wrong," they prepare for failure before they even begin. These patterns become habits, and habits become identities. Over time, people forget that they have the ability to challenge the stories they tell themselves. They begin living according to assumptions rather than possibilities. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. When you start observing your thoughts instead of automatically obeying them, everything begins to change. You notice how often your mind exaggerates problems. You recognize recurring fears that have never actually come true. You become aware of the inner dialogue that influences your decisions every day. This awareness creates distance between you and your thoughts. Instead of being swept away by every mental storm, you learn to stand still and watch it pass. Control does not come from fighting every negative thought. In many cases, resistance only gives those thoughts more power. Control comes from choosing where your attention will rest. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Whatever you focus on grows stronger. If you constantly focus on limitations, limitations will dominate your experience. If you focus on opportunities, growth, and solutions, your perspective begins to expand. The mind becomes calmer when it learns that it does not have to chase every fear, answer every doubt, or engage with every worry. It begins to understand that peace is not the result of having perfect thoughts, but the result of having a wiser relationship with those thoughts, allowing confidence, clarity, and purpose to emerge from a place of conscious awareness rather than automatic mental habits and emotional distractions. Life rarely unfolds according to our plans. No matter how carefully we prepare, there will be moments when circumstances shift without warning. Opportunities disappear. Relationships change. Expectations go unmet. Challenges arrive at inconvenient times. Uncertainty is woven into the fabric of existence, yet many people spend a great deal of their energy trying to avoid it. They seek guarantees where none exist and search for complete control in a world that is constantly changing. The result is often frustration, anxiety, and a feeling of helplessness whenever life refuses to follow the script they imagined. True strength, however, is not found in eliminating uncertainty. It is found in learning how to live with it. It is found in developing the confidence to move forward even when the path ahead is unclear. Every person who has accomplished something meaningful has had to take steps without knowing exactly how things would turn out. Every individual who has grown through hardship has had to face moments when answers were unavailable and certainty was out of reach. The courage to continue despite these conditions is one of the greatest forms of inner power. Adversity has a unique way of revealing who we are. When life is comfortable, it is easy to feel confident and secure. When everything is working in our favor, we may not fully understand the depth of our resilience. Difficulties, however, expose the foundations upon which we have built our lives. They reveal our habits, beliefs, fears, and strength. What feels like a setback is often an invitation to discover abilities that would have remained hidden under easier circumstances. Many people view adversity as evidence that something has gone wrong. They interpret challenges as signs of failure or misfortune, yet some of the most valuable lessons emerge from seasons of struggle. Patience is developed while waiting. Courage is developed while facing fear. Wisdom is developed through mistakes and reflection. Compassion is often born from personal pain. These qualities cannot be purchased, borrowed, or inherited. They are forged through experience. When uncertainty enters our lives, the mind often reacts by imagining worst-case scenarios. It fills the unknown with fear and creates stories about outcomes that have not occurred. The future becomes a source of worry rather than possibility. But uncertainty is not inherently negative. It simply means that multiple outcomes remain possible. Hidden within uncertainty are opportunities we cannot yet see, lessons we have not yet learned, and strengths we have not yet discovered. The people who navigate adversity most effectively are not necessarily the strongest, smartest, or most talented. They are often the ones who remain adaptable. They understand that life is a process of adjustment. When one door closes, they search for another. When plans change, they modify their approach without abandoning their purpose. They do not waste all of their energy wishing reality were different. Instead, they work with what is in front of them and continue moving forward. This mindset transforms challenges from obstacles into teachers. Every setback becomes a chance to develop resilience. Every period of uncertainty becomes an opportunity to strengthen trust in oneself. Every difficult season becomes a reminder that discomfort is temporary, but growth can endure for a lifetime. Through this perspective, adversity loses much of its power to intimidate, because it is no longer viewed as an enemy to fear, but as a force that can shape character, deepen wisdom, and reveal an inner strength that remains hidden until it is called upon by life's most demanding moments. Calmness is not something that arrives by chance, nor is it a state reserved for rare moments when life happens to feel easier. It is built slowly, quietly, through daily awareness and discipline. Just as the body becomes stronger through consistent training, the mind becomes steadier through repeated practice. Many people imagine peace as a destination they will eventually reach once their problems are solved, their goals are achieved, or their circumstances finally aligned. Yet in reality, peace is not something that waits at the end of struggle. It is something that must be cultivated within the struggle itself. Daily awareness begins with something simple, but often overlooked. Noticing how the mind reacts to situations. Noticing how quickly emotions rise and fall. Noticing the patterns that repeat themselves when stress appears. Most people move through their days on autopilot, reacting the same way to similar situations without ever pausing to observe their internal world. But awareness interrupts this cycle. It creates a moment of recognition where you begin to see your thoughts and emotions as processes rather than commands. This kind of awareness does not require isolation or silence in a perfect environment. It can be practiced in the middle of everyday life. While speaking with others, while dealing with pressure, while facing unexpected delays, the mind can be gently trained to observe rather than immediately react. Over time, This observation becomes a habit. You begin to realize that not every feeling needs to be acted upon, and not every thought requires your attention. Discipline enters when awareness is put into action. It is not enough to simply notice what is happening internally. One must also choose how to respond. Discipline is the ability to hold steady when the mind urges you to spiral into fear or frustration. It is the decision to pause before speaking harshly, to breathe before reacting impulsively, to step back before assuming the worst. These small moments of restraint may seem insignificant individually, but together they reshape the entire structure of the mind. Training the mind for calmness is similar to training a muscle. At first, it feels difficult and unnatural. The old patterns of worry, overthinking, and emotional reaction are strong because they have been repeated for years. But repetition is also the key to change. Each time you choose patience over panic, clarity over confusion, or awareness over automatic reaction, you strengthen a new pattern within yourself. Slowly, calmness becomes more accessible, not because life has changed, but because your relationship with life has changed. There will be moments when discipline feels tiring, when awareness slips, and when old habits return. This is part of the process, not a failure of it. The mind does not transform overnight. It evolves through persistence. What matters is not perfection but continuation. Each return to awareness is another step towards stability. Each decision to remain grounded reinforces inner strength. As this practice deepens, something remarkable begins to happen. The mind no longer feels like an unpredictable force that must be controlled at every moment. Instead, it becomes a space of understanding. Emotions are still present, but they are no longer overwhelming. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer dominate every action. A quiet confidence develops, rooted not in external conditions, but in internal stability. Through consistent awareness and discipline, calmness becomes less of an effort and more of a natural way of being, where clarity guides decisions, patience shapes responses, and inner balance remains present even when the world around us continues to change without warning.